What happened to Jennifer Parks? On an ordinary October night in 2001, a young woman left her friend's house. It was chilly, so she pulled her jacket tighter around her body and stepped out into the darkness. She was only 26 years old and had just moved to Colorado from Indiana. She was excited to start her new job as a bartender and make some new friends. But as she walked home that night, something terrible happened. She vanished. There were no goodbyes, no texts, no car. Her purse and her keys were left on the porch. Her friends and family never heard from her again. And even today, her body has never been found. This is the terrifying case of Jennifer Parks, a story that has haunted the small town of Frisco, Colorado for over 2 decades. Every single day, people wonder what happened to her. Did she run away? Was she kidnapped? Or did something else happen that night? To find out more about this mysterious case, stay tuned. In the heart of the United States, nestled amidst rolling hills and friendly faces, lies the town of Castle Rock. It's the kind of place where front porches become community hubs, where lemonade sipped on a summer evening means more than refreshment, and where knowing your neighbor's name isn't just polite, it's a tradition. It's a town that looks like the perfect American town straight out of a Norman Rockwell painting. But appearances can be deceiving. On the chilly autumn night of October 12, 2001, the crisp air carried the promise of fall. Jack-o'-lanterns grinned from porches, and the scent of pumpkin spice floated on the breeze. Yet within this idyllic setting, a shadow was about to fall. 26-year-old Jennifer Parks, a registered nurse with a radiant smile and a heart of gold, was enjoying a casual get-together with friends. Little did she know that this evening of camaraderie would be the last they would share. The gathering was simple, a Friday night spent in the company of good friends. Laughter echoed through the apartment, mingling with the clink of glasses. Jokes were cracked, stories were shared, and the worries of the day faded into the background. Time slipped by unnoticed as the group reveled in the joy of friendship. But as the clock struck 11:45 p.m., signaling the witching hour, Jennifer felt the pull of home. With a final wave, she stepped out into the night. Her friends watched her go, unaware that they were bidding farewell without knowing it. Her journey home should have been a short one. Jennifer lived just a few minutes from her friend's apartment. But that night, the familiar route would lead her into a nightmare she wouldn't awaken from. The neighborhood was quiet, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights. The only sound was the gentle hum of crickets. As Jennifer walked, she probably hummed a tune or perhaps recited lines from her favorite book. Unbeknownst to her, unseen eyes were following her every step of the way. What drew Jennifer to the hiking trail? Was it the lure of the unknown, the promise of adventure, or maybe just the peacefulness of the woods? Whatever her motivation, this seemingly innocent decision would change everything. The trail was lonely, cloaked in the gathering darkness, but Jennifer wasn't afraid. The moon was full that night, casting an ethereal glow that banished most shadows. Each step she took brought her deeper into the woods, the trees forming a protective canopy overhead. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, the group noticed Jennifer's absence. At first, it was just a passing thought. Perhaps she had stopped for a late-night snack or decided to take a longer route home. But as the minutes turned into hours, worry began to set in. Calls went out, but Jennifer's phone was off. Messages piled up with each unanswered text message deepening their concern. They tried calling her, but all they heard in response was the cold, mechanical chime of a voicemail recording. By the time the sun peeked over the horizon the next morning, the laughter and chatter of the previous night had been replaced by tension and fear. Jennifer was missing, and the friends realized that something was terribly wrong. Panic surged as they recounted the events of the previous night, searching for clues, for any indication of what could have happened to her. But each new detail only raised more questions. Meanwhile, deep in the woods, Jennifer's body lay undiscovered, hidden away in a spot that only her killer knew about. The hours stretched into a day, then into 2. and still there was no sign of Jennifer. Her family, alerted by her concerned friends, arrived at her apartment. Empty. The sight that greeted them sent chills down their spines. There were no signs of a struggle, no shattered windows, no forced entry. It was as if Jennifer had simply vanished into thin air. As the day wore on, the town of Castle Rock held its breath. Every car that passed was scrutinized. Every stranger eyed with suspicion. The tight-knit community was on edge. They rallied together, distributing flyers bearing Jennifer's smiling face, organizing search parties, their voices echoing through the silent streets. And then a break in the case, her car was found abandoned near the hiking trail. The discovery sent shockwaves through the town. The car was parked exactly where the killer had left it, untouched by anyone other than its owner. Inside, they found fibers that would later link Daniel Cross to the crime scene. But at the time, these fibers were just a small piece of a complex puzzle. Daniel Cross, a name that would soon become synonymous with evil, had lived in Castle Rock for many years. He was a fixture in the community, known by most but not particularly well known. He had a past, however, a past he kept carefully hidden. Years ago, he had been arrested for stalking a former girlfriend, but that incident was long forgotten, buried under the weight of time and the quiet normalcy of everyday life. When questioned by the police, he portrayed the picture of a concerned citizen, shocked and saddened by the news of Jennifer's disappearance. He claimed to have been at home all night, his alibi airtight. The police, needing to investigate all leads, took his statement and marked him as a person of interest. Little did they know they were dealing with a monster who was expertly hiding his true colors. Days turned into weeks with each passing moment. Hope for finding Jennifer alive began to dwindle, but the determination of the small town only grew stronger. They walked every street, searched every park, hoping against hope for a miracle. Their efforts attracted media attention, turning the quiet town into a hub of activity. But amid the chaos, Daniel Cross remained calm, confident that he had gotten away with murder. But the police were on to him. A closer look at his car revealed crucial evidence. The fibers found inside matched those on Jennifer's clothes. And when the police searched his home, they uncovered even more sinister details. Writing found in his house suggested a disturbing narrative of obsession, hinting at his possessive nature and unhealthy fixation on Jennifer. With this new evidence, the police confronted Daniel. His facade crumbled, revealing the monster that lurked beneath. As the evidence mounted against him, his demeanor shifted, his composure breaking down. Eventually, he confessed to the horrific crime, leading the authorities to the spot where he had buried Jennifer's body. The news of his confession sent ripples of shock and sorrow through the community. The monster they had suspected was now unmasked. The pieces of the puzzle slotted into place, painting a grim picture of what had transpired that fateful night. Daniel's arrest and subsequent confession provided a semblance of justice, but it was a bitter pill to swallow. For the community of Castle Rock, the idyllic charm of their town was irrevocably tarnished. The safety they had once cherished had been brutally compromised. The faces they had greeted with smiles were now tainted with suspicion and fear. The comfort of familiarity had been shattered, replaced by the unsettling realization that danger could lurk in the most unexpected places. As for Jennifer, her radiant smile and compassionate heart would forever be etched in the memories of those who knew her. The town mourned the loss of a shining light, a soul taken too soon from a community that loved her dearly. The case of Jennifer Parks remains a haunting reminder for all of us that even in the most picturesque of settings, evil can find a foothold. It underscores the importance of remaining vigilant, of never dismissing a premonition of danger, and of cherishing the preciousness of life and the fleeting nature of time. So as you sip your lemonade on a warm evening, remember the story of Jennifer Parks. Let it serve as a reminder to appreciate the beauty of life, the value of friendships, and the fragility of existence. And always, always heed the whispers of fear, for they may just be trying to protect you. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. October 12, 2001, a Friday, was shaping up to be just another day in Boulder, Colorado. Jennifer Parks, a 26-year-old registered nurse, was working the night shift at the Boulder Community Hospital, comforting patients and offering care. At around 11:30 p.m., her shift ended. She gathered her things, smiled at her colleagues, and headed out into the cool night air. As she walked down the street, the lights of parked cars glittered like fallen stars. Street lamps cast long shadows, and the distant hum of traffic was a constant lullaby in the city. Jennifer was excited because on this particular Friday, she was going to spend the evening at a friend's apartment, catch up over a glass of wine. Just a few days earlier, her friends, Jessica and Doug Lewis, had moved into their new place, and Jennifer couldn't wait to see it. The three had been friends since high school and shared a bond that went beyond just being friends. They confided in each other, celebrated each other's triumphs, and offered support in times of need. Their friendship was a testament to shared laughter, inside jokes, and a lifetime of memories. After saying her goodbyes to her colleagues, Jennifer continued her walk. She was excited to see her friends and couldn't wait to share stories about her recent trip to Utah, where she'd hiked Angel's Landing, a trek known for its breathtaking views. Reaching the end of the block, she turned towards the apartment building where her friends had moved. With a wave of familiarity, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. Upon entering the apartment, Jessica greeted her with a warm welcome. The apartment was a reflection of their personalities, decorated with vibrant colors and dotted with quirky accessories. It was filled with laughter as the three friends caught up, reminiscing about old times and discussing their dreams for the future. They sipped wine and nibbled on cheese and crackers, the clinking of glasses echoing the camaraderie that filled the room. Before long, it was nearly midnight, and Jennifer mentioned that she should probably head home. The walk back was usually no problem, but her boyfriend had recently transferred to the graveyard shift at the hospital, and she'd be alone after midnight. Saying her goodbyes, Jennifer stepped out into the night. The streets were quiet now, and the moon hung like a silver coin in the dark sky. The wind carried the scent of autumn leaves, and the distant sound of sirens provided an eerie soundtrack to her walk. Little did she know that this walk would be the last one of her life. Boulder was a city that prided itself on its safety and tranquility. It was the kind of place where doors were often left unlocked and neighbors knew each other by name. So when Jennifer didn't show up for work the following morning, it wasn't cause for immediate alarm. She might have overslept or found a way to swap shifts. But as the hours passed without her, a sense of unease began to set in. At the hospital, coworkers tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. No one thought much of it at first. People could be busy. They could have a family emergency. But then the calls kept going to voicemail and the hours kept ticking by. As the sun rose higher in the sky, so did the level of worry. There was something undeniably wrong here. The staff decided to alert the police. That same day, news of Jennifer's disappearance spread through the tight-knit community like wildfire. Rumors swirled and theories were tossed about, but no one had any concrete answers. Jennifer wasn't the kind to run away or ignore her responsibilities. She loved her job, her family, and her friends. To each of them, the idea that she would abandon everything was unthinkable. Her roommates, Lisa and Kyle Moore, were beside themselves with worry. They had been living with Jennifer for a couple of years now and had grown fond of her easygoing nature and infectious laugh. They knew how diligent she was, how dependable and caring. So when she didn't appear for work, they knew something was wrong. Over the next few days, the search intensified. Hundreds of volunteers joined the effort, combing through parks, checking houses, and distributing flyers with Jennifer's smiling face. Every lead was chased, every tip followed, but there was no sign of the missing nurse. The community was gripped with fear. Was Jennifer wandering somewhere, lost and alone? Had she fallen victim to foul play? The questions echoed in the minds of many. As the police investigated, they spoke with everyone who had seen Jennifer recently, and one name kept popping up: Daniel Byers-Cross. He was someone Jennifer had dated briefly, but she had broken up with him months ago. Even so, he had been a persistent presence in her life, showing up at her apartment unannounced, calling her at odd hours, trying to win her back. Some of her friends and co-workers had even witnessed these encounters, noting his inappropriate and sometimes aggressive behavior. When questioned, Daniel played down his relationship with Jennifer, claiming they were just friends. But his calm demeanor and rehearsed answers set off alarm bells for the detectives. There was something about him that just didn't add up. The investigation took a significant turn when detectives obtained records from Daniel's mobile phone provider. The data revealed that on the night Jennifer disappeared, his phone had been in the vicinity of the hiking trail where her car was later found. This wasn't a coincidence, not unless Daniel was also hiking in the area, which seemed unlikely given his lack of outdoor interest. Could this trail hold the key to Jennifer's disappearance? What secrets did it hold that linked Daniel to the missing nurse? As the investigation deepened, more pieces of the puzzle began to form. A witness came forward claiming to have seen Daniel's car in the parking lot near the trail, corroborating the phone data. Furthermore, fibers found on Jennifer's clothing matched those in Daniel's car. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, painting a grim picture. On November 1st, 2001, almost 3 weeks after Jennifer vanished, a group of hikers stumbled upon a grim discovery. Hidden in a shallow grave just off the hiking trail was Jennifer's body. The news sent shockwaves through the community, shattering any remaining hopes of a happy ending. Her family and friends gathered together, united in grief and determination. They clung to each other for support, sharing stories of Jennifer's kindness and spirit. The trial began on April 2003 and quickly became one of Colorado's most notorious cases. Prosecutors meticulously presented their case, detailing the evidence against Daniel, the fibers, the phone records, the witnesses. They painted a picture of a man who couldn't accept rejection and had resorted to murder. Defense attorneys argued that the prosecution had circumstantial evidence, not a concrete proof, and pointed fingers at other possible suspects. The case hinged on whether the jury believed that Daniel's actions indeed led to Jennifer's death. After 4 days of deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. Daniel Cross was found guilty of first-degree murder. As the verdict echoed in the courtroom, Daniel's face betrayed nothing. Was he relieved it was over? Remorseful? Or did he still deny his guilt? The question lingered in the air. Daniel was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. While this brought a sense of justice for Jennifer's family, it couldn't bring her back. In the years that followed, they channeled their grief into action, establishing the Jennifer Parks Foundation to help other victims of domestic violence and stalking. In the wake of this tragedy, the community of Boulder, Colorado, was left grappling with profound questions. How could such a heinous crime occur in their seemingly idyllic city? What had driven Daniel to commit such an atrocious act? And most importantly, how could they honor Jennifer's memory while ensuring such a tragedy never repeated itself? The case of Jennifer Parks remains a haunting reminder of the dangers of obsession and the importance of recognizing the signs of potential violence. As we remember Jennifer, let her story serve as a beacon, urging us to be vigilant, empathetic, and proactive in the face of such darkness. The quiet town of Maple Creek was known more for its scenic hiking trails than for police activity. So when officers received a call reporting a missing person on April 2009, it disrupted the tranquility of the close-knit community. Jennifer Parks, a 34-year-old nurse, had not shown up for work, and nobody had heard from her since the night before. Her absence was unusual and concerning. Jennifer was not the type of person to miss work or fail to contact her loved ones. Her roommate, Lisa, had noticed Jennifer's absence that morning. At first, Lisa had assumed that Jennifer, being the reliable person that she was, had simply forgotten to inform her that she was running late. But as the minutes turned into hours and Jennifer was still nowhere to be seen, a sense of unease began to creep over Lisa. Attempts to call Jennifer went straight to voicemail, each unanswered call echoing the growing dread in Lisa's heart. As dusk began to settle, casting long shadows across the room, Lisa knew she had to act. Knowing Jennifer's responsible nature, the idea that she could be in some kind of trouble loomed large in Lisa's mind. Quickly, she dialed 911. The dispatcher took down the details. Every second felt like an eternity. Lisa paced the floor, the silence of the house amplifying the ticking clock. Finally, the call was placed, and the wheels of the investigation started turning. The first thing on the agenda was checking the locations Jennifer frequented, hoping to find her at one of her usual spots. But as the search continued into the night, so did the worry etched on Lisa's face. Hours ticked by, and still there was no sign of Jennifer. Fear was starting to take hold. Jennifer was never one to ignore her responsibilities. The thought of something truly having happened to her sent chills down Lisa's spine. By midnight, the house was filled with police. The quiet neighborhood, usually peaceful and serene, was now buzzing with activity. Flashlights cut through the darkness as officers canvassed the area, their voices hushed but urgent. As the night wore on, the search yielded no results. The officers found no trace of Jennifer, no witnesses, no clues. The only lead they had was her abandoned car. Her car held several clues, the most prominent being the missing keys. Why would Jennifer leave her keys in the ignition? Had she been expecting to return quickly, or had someone else driven the car? Each question generated more theories, each theory adding another layer to the mystery. Jennifer's car was found parked along a secluded stretch of road leading to a popular hiking trail, Cedar Ridge. The trail was known for its breathtaking views and tranquil atmosphere, making it a favorite spot for hikers and nature enthusiasts. But on this day, it became the focus of a police investigation. As the sun rose, casting a pale light over the town, anxiety hung heavy in the air. For the people of Maple Creek, the face of their beloved Jennifer was now plastered across missing posters that lined telephone poles and community boards. The image of a smiling Jennifer, her eyes sparkling with life, was a stark contrast to the grim reality of her disappearance. Days turned into a week, then two, and still there was no sign of Jennifer. The initial flurry of media attention began to fade, but the agony for her family and friends only intensified. Hope, however, refused to be extinguished. Every lead, no matter how small, was chased. Every tip, no matter how tenuous, was investigated. The dedicated searchers were driven by love, loyalty, and an unyielding belief that Jennifer was out there somewhere, waiting to be found. As the investigation deepened, detectives revisited the scene where Jennifer's car was found, hoping to uncover something they might have missed. Among the items they collected was a partially crushed can of Mountain Dew. This seemingly insignificant detail would later prove to be a crucial piece of the puzzle. The can provided a partial print of a fingerprint, a silent witness connecting a specific person to the car and ultimately to Jennifer. That person was Daniel Cross. The news of Daniel's connection to Jennifer spread like wildfire through the close-knit community. In hushed tones, residents exchanged stories about Daniel, piecing together a picture of a man who was often regarded as an outcast. Some spoke of his volatile temper, others of his obsessive tendencies. All agreed he was a man best avoided. As the focus narrowed onto Daniel, detectives delved deep into his background, uncovering a history that was unsettling. They discovered a previous arrest for stalking, a chilling echo of the obsessive behavior that had surfaced in his interactions with Jennifer. The details of that incident were disturbing, painting a picture of a man who, once fixated on someone, couldn't let go. In the face of all this, Daniel maintained his innocence, claiming that his interaction with Jennifer was limited and that he had no part in her disappearance. However, his calm demeanor and cooperation didn't convince everyone, especially the investigators. With the physical evidence firmly linking him to Jennifer's car, detectives saw his behavior as a calculated attempt to throw them off his trail. Every answer seemed to raise more questions, and every question brought them closer to a realization that this case was far from ordinary. The Mountain Dew can was significant because it provided a tangible link between Daniel and the crime scene. This evidence was crucial in a world where proof was paramount. However, the legal system is built on the principle of innocent until proven guilty. Despite the mounting circumstantial evidence against Daniel, he could not be charged. Detectives knew they needed more, something concrete, something undeniable. As days turned into weeks and the hope of finding Jennifer alive began to dwindle, the determination to bring her home grew stronger. The community rallied, organizing search parties, offering rewards, and keeping the pressure on law enforcement to find their missing friend. But behind the scenes, the investigators were hitting a wall. Witnesses came forward with new details, each piece fitting into the larger narrative, yet none providing the definitive answer. What had happened to Jennifer? Had she met with an accident? Was she a victim of foul play? Or had she chosen to disappear voluntarily? If so, why? The investigation reached a stalemate, but the relentless pursuit of justice didn't cease. Detectives scoured through digital data, poring over Jennifer's internet history. What they found was both surprising and intriguing. Jennifer had been researching hiking trails, her interest specifically focused on the very hiking trail where her car was eventually found. Cedar Ridge had been a place of solace for Jennifer, a place she had frequented during tough times. Detectives revisited the trail, retracing Jennifer's steps. The serenity of the location was at odds with the grim possibilities that haunted their thoughts. As they searched, they spotted a discarded cell phone lying amidst the rocks. Hope surged. Could this be Jennifer's phone? The answer was confirmed when they discovered Jennifer's name and number etched on the back. The phone was sent for forensic analysis, and when the results came back, they provided a crucial timeline. The last call made from Jennifer's phone was to Daniel Cross, placing him directly at the center of the mystery once again. This development shook the community to its core. Whispers turned to accusations, and many in Maple Creek were convinced that Daniel was behind Jennifer's disappearance. Pressure mounted on law enforcement to make an arrest, but they were treading carefully. Public sentiment was high, but they needed airtight evidence to secure a conviction. Days turned into weeks, and the community's anxiety grew. The weight of the missing person case hung heavy, and the lack of resolution threatened to tear the town apart. As the investigation reached its peak, the smallest details became focal points, and it was these minute details that eventually provided the breakthrough. During the forensic analysis of Jennifer's car, a hair was found. It was not a match for Jennifer nor Daniel. This unidentified strand became a key piece of evidence, leading investigators to a local hair salon. There, a stylist recalled cutting a man's hair similar to Daniel's shortly after Jennifer disappeared. This new lead provided a glimmer of hope in what had seemed like a hopeless situation. Acting on this tip, detectives visited the salon again. This time, they brought along a photograph of Daniel. The stylist's eyes widened in recognition. She was certain that the man in the photo was the man who had been in her chair. This confirmed sighting provided concrete evidence placing Daniel at the salon on the day Jennifer went missing. With this new evidence, the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, forming a picture of what might have transpired on that fateful day. Armed with the additional evidence, the police felt confident enough to question Daniel again. This time, the demeanor of the officers was different, their tone more authoritative, their body language less inviting. Daniel's facade of composure began to crack, his carefully constructed story showing signs of strain. Under the weight of the new evidence, Daniel broke. He confessed to the crime, leading the authorities to a shallow grave in a secluded part of the woods. There, they found Jennifer's remains. The discovery of Jennifer's body brought a mixture of emotions to the town: grief, anger, and a sense of closure. It was a somber reminder of the fragility of life and the darkness that can lurk in the seemingly peaceful corners of society. The community came together at vigils, sharing stories, offering condolences, and honoring the memory of their beloved Jennifer. The tragedy left an indelible mark, a scar that would forever be a part of their collective memory. In the heart of Colorado, where the Rocky Mountains touch the sky, there lived a young nurse named Jennifer Parks. Known for her radiant smile and a heart of gold, Jennifer was the kind of person who made everyone's day just a little brighter. However, fate had a cruel twist in store for this vibrant soul. Her disappearance would send shockwaves through the town, leaving an indelible mark on its residents and raising questions that echoed through the mountains. But before we continue, make sure to subscribe if you haven't, so that you won't miss any new stories. 3 weeks after Jennifer Parks vanished, the search that had consumed her small Colorado town came to a tragic end. It was a crisp autumn morning when 2 hikers followed a narrow path off the main trail, an area rarely traveled. They noticed disturbed soil beneath a cluster of trees, a shallow patch of earth that didn't match the rest of the forest floor. Their curiosity turned to horror when they realized what they had uncovered. Beneath that dirt was the body of Jennifer Parks. News spread like wildfire through the picturesque town of Silt, Colorado, leaving a community of 6,000 residents grappling with grief and disbelief. The kind-hearted nurse, the daughter, the sister, the friend who had lit up so many lives was gone. For her family, the hope they had been holding on to shattered in an instant. As the sun set over the town, casting long shadows across the quaint streets, the community gathered for a vigil, their voices trembling as they read poetry and shared memories of Jennifer, each word a testament to the profound impact she had on everyone she met. The outpouring of love was a stark contrast to the sinister shadow that had fallen over Silt. What had happened to Jennifer? Where had she gone? And who would do such a thing to such a radiant soul? These questions echoed in the hearts of the townspeople, bouncing off the very walls of their homes. At the center of this mystery was a man named Daniel Cross, a resident of Silt whose name had loomed over the investigation from the very beginning. The medical examiner's findings confirmed what detectives already feared. Jennifer had been strangled. There was no chance her death was accidental. This was deliberate, personal. Investigators immediately turned back to the man whose name had loomed over the case from the very beginning, Daniel Cross. The evidence was lining up, and now, with Jennifer's body recovered, they had more to work with. A week prior to Jennifer's disappearance, she had called the police. She reported that she had been followed home from the grocery store by a man she identified only as Dan. But the unsettling part was that this wasn't a random occurrence. Jennifer had seen Daniel around town before and even had a brief interaction with him at a local bar. He had been persistent, she said, and she was uncomfortable. The police had taken her concerns seriously, but at that time they hadn't found enough evidence to take action against Daniel. But now, with the discovery of Jennifer's body, everything changed. As detectives combed through the scant details of Jennifer's interaction with Daniel, they realized the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just a case of mistaken identity or a random act of violence. This was targeted. The question was why. They delved into Daniel's past, looking for clues, for anything that could explain his behavior. And what they found was a troubling pattern. He had a history of stalking, of fixating on people and not letting them go. The weight of the evidence against Daniel was substantial, yet he maintained his innocence. The town of Salt was divided. Some believed Daniel was guilty, pointing to his history and the evidence against him. Others argued that without concrete proof, it was unfair to condemn him. The pressure was immense, and Daniel's lawyer knew how to use it to his advantage. Every fiber, every footprint, every piece of digital evidence was challenged, leaving the prosecution with the daunting task of proving beyond a reasonable doubt that Daniel was guilty. And then, there were the diary entries. Daniel's personal thoughts, his innermost feelings had been laid bare for the world to see. In those pages, he had written dark, obsessive entries about Jennifer. He wrote about owning her, about keeping her forever. These were the words of a man who saw her not as a human being, but as something he could possess, no matter the cost. Now, these entries were never meant to be seen by anyone else. They were Daniel's private torment, his inner demons given form on paper. But the law had a way of intruding upon privacy, and those diaries became one of the key pieces of evidence in the case against him. As the trial progressed, the diaries took on a life of their own. They were dissected, analyzed, and scrutinized. Each word was weighed, each phrase examined for hidden meanings. And the cumulative effect was devastating. It painted a picture of a man consumed, a man whose thoughts revolved around Jennifer, whose fantasies were intertwined with her presence. It was a portrayal so disturbing that many in the courtroom could not bring themselves to look at Daniel, unable to reconcile the gentle face staring back at them with the monster depicted in those diary pages. When the case went to trial, the courtroom was packed. Family, friends, reporters, all wanted to hear the story of what had happened to Jennifer. Prosecutors laid out a chilling narrative. Daniel Cross was portrayed as a man who could not accept rejection, a man whose obsession with Jennifer escalated until it turned deadly. The picture they painted was one of a slow burn, of how Daniel's obsession grew like a cancer, feeding on his inability to let go. The prosecution began by establishing Daniel's motive. They argued that Daniel could not bear rejection, and when Jennifer ended their brief relationship, he became consumed with her, wanting to possess her, to make her his in life or in death. They then presented the timeline, piece by piece, showing how Daniel had stalked Jennifer, how he had been near her when she disappeared. Every phone call, every text message, every sighting was meticulously laid out, forming a web of circumstantial evidence that pointed directly at Daniel. Then came the forensic evidence. Microscopic fibers found on Jennifer's clothing matched fibers from inside Daniel's car. It was a direct connection, proof that Jennifer had been inside his vehicle the night she disappeared. Each piece of evidence was like a stone dropped in a pond, sending out ripples of impact. The prosecution wove it all together, creating a narrative so compelling that it was difficult to escape the conclusion that Daniel was guilty. Yet the defense team fought back. They pointed to the lack of a direct witness, arguing that circumstantial evidence, no matter how strong, could not prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. They suggested that perhaps Jennifer had run off, that there was more to her disappearance than met the eye. Was there another person involved? Had she planned to leave town? The defense raised these questions, leaving room for doubt in the minds of the jury. And then there was Daniel himself, taking the stand in his own defense. He portrayed himself as an innocent man, a man who had lost his reputation and his livelihood because of false accusations. He denied the allegations, insisting he had nothing to do with Jennifer's death. He claimed that his diary entries were just that, entries. They were his private thoughts, his moments of frustration, his dreams, not confessions. He argued that the evidence against him was weak, that the prosecution had failed to prove their case. But as the trial dragged on, the weight of the evidence began to tell. Each piece, when considered alone, could have been challenged. But the cumulative effect was undeniable. The prosecution had done its job well. The defense tried to chip away at the prosecution's case, but the cracks were too wide. As the trial neared its end, the jury began their deliberations. They had heard all the evidence, seen all the proof. Now it was up to them to decide. After days of testimony and hours of deliberation, the jury returned with their verdict. Daniel Cross was found guilty of first-degree murder. His sentence: life in prison with no possibility of parole. For Jennifer's family, the verdict was bittersweet. Justice had been served, but it could never bring back the young woman whose future had been stolen. A daughter lost, a life cut short. In the years that followed, Jennifer's story left a lasting mark on her community. Vigils were held in her memory, and her loved ones worked tirelessly to raise awareness about the dangers of stalking and obsessive relationships. Her name became a symbol, a reminder that the warning signs of obsession should never be ignored. Though justice was served and the guilty brought to account, the pain of loss resonated through the town of Salt and the lives of Jennifer's family. Her absence was a constant ache, a void that could not be filled. But in the midst of the tragedy, the community found solace in unity, coming together to honor Jennifer's memory and to ensure that her light continued to shine, albeit faintly, in the hearts of those she touched. Jennifer Parks was only 26 years old when her life was taken. She was a nurse who cared for others, a friend who made people laugh, and a daughter who brought joy to her family. Her story is a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest dangers are not strangers in the dark, but people we already know. And though justice was served, the heartbreak of her loss will always remain. After hearing the terrifying details surrounding Jennifer's murder, you may wonder how her family is coping. So here's an update on Jennifer's family and what happened to them after her death. Although there has been some progress in her case, her family still struggles with the loss to this very day. The empty chair at family gatherings, the silence where her laughter used to be. Those are wounds that never fully heal. But out of their grief, they chose to create something meaningful. They established a foundation in Jennifer's name, dedicated to supporting victims of stalking and domestic violence. Their mission is to give others the protection and voice that Jennifer never had, ensuring that her story will not be forgotten and that her life will continue to inspire change. Meanwhile, if you want to see more videos like this, then stay tuned. In an interview with Dateline NBC, Jennifer's mother, Diana, stated that Jennifer had a caring, giving heart. She said that she was loved by everyone and that her passing has left a gaping hole in their family. Diana also mentioned that her daughter's spirit lives on through the foundation established in her memory, which aids victims of stalking and domestic violence. The foundation aims to empower individuals by providing resources such as self-defense classes, legal counsel, and counseling services. Through the foundation, Jennifer's memory is kept alive, and her story continues to make an impact. In addition to honoring their daughter's memory, Diana and her husband, Mike, have found strength in supporting other families affected by stalking and domestic violence. They also revealed that while they can never bring their daughter back, they hope to prevent other families from experiencing the same pain they endured. Since Jennifer's tragic murder, her siblings have also spoken out about the impact the crime had on their lives. Jennifer's sister, Michelle, shared that the murder has deeply affected their family, causing them to constantly worry about their own safety and the safety of those around them. Michelle emphasized that people should listen to their intuition and take action if they feel unsafe. She also expressed frustration with the criminal justice system and the challenges they faced in seeking justice for their sister. On the other hand, Jennifer's brother, Matt, has chosen to focus on the positive aspects of his sister's life and the progress made in stalking awareness since her death. He highlighted that Jennifer was deeply loved by many and that her memory inspires him to keep moving forward. Matt acknowledged that while the initial years were difficult and painful, he finds solace in knowing that Jennifer is no longer suffering. He also expressed gratitude for the support from the community and the efforts to honor Jennifer's memory. It's important to note that Jennifer's family has shown remarkable resilience in the face of this tragedy. They have channeled their grief into positive actions by supporting causes close to their hearts. By speaking out, they not only honor their daughter and sister, but also raise awareness about important social issues. Their strength and determination to make a difference serve as an inspiration to many. If you're enjoying this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on any updates. Now, let's return to our previous topic. During the trial, it was revealed that Melissa had taken out multiple life insurance policies on Jennifer, totaling $400,000. The evidence showed that Melissa had transferred large sums of money from Jennifer's account to her own just weeks before the murder. Moreover, DNA analysis confirmed that the blood found on the steering wheel and inside the trunk of the victim's car belonged to Jennifer. Furthermore, cell phone records indicated that Melissa had been near the crime scene at the time of the murder, and she had even Googled Jennifer's workplace. Shockingly, Melissa attempted to collect on the life insurance policies, but they were denied due to the suspicious circumstances surrounding Jennifer's death. Melissa's behavior raised suspicion as she acted strangely during the investigation. For example, she changed her story multiple times regarding when she last saw Jennifer alive. Additionally, she took an unusual vacation to Hawaii shortly after the murder, leaving many to question her motives. However, despite the evidence against her, Melissa denied murdering Jennifer, claiming that she had not seen her sister for 2 months prior to the incident. Prosecutors argued that Melissa had meticulously planned the crime, stating that she exhibited premeditation, deliberation, and concealment. They pointed out that she had obtained a gun and conducted surveillance on Jennifer's workplace before the murder. Additionally, Melissa's attempt to collect on the life insurance policies provided a strong financial motive for the crime. As the trial progressed, more disturbing details emerged. It was revealed that Melissa had a history of making false accusations of sexual assault and had been arrested for stealing a substantial amount of money from her employer. These revelations shed light on Melissa's character and cast doubt on her credibility. During the trial, the defense attempted to portray Melissa as a loving sister who would never harm Jennifer. However, the prosecution's case was strong and they successfully convinced the jury that Melissa was guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. As the trial reached its conclusion, the emotional toll on Jennifer's family became evident. They had endured years of anguish and uncertainty, and now they had to relive the horrific details of the crime in court. Nevertheless, they remained steadfast in their pursuit of justice for Jennifer. When the jury delivered their guilty verdict, Jennifer's family felt a sense of relief and closure. Finally, after years of waiting, they had justice for their daughter and sister. The conviction brought a measure of solace to their pain, knowing that Melissa would face the consequences of her actions. As the sentencing phase approached, Jennifer's family prepared to make their victim impact statements. This would be their opportunity to express the profound impact Melissa's actions had on their lives. They wanted Melissa to understand the devastation she had caused and the long-lasting trauma they had endured. In their statements, Jennifer's family described the emptiness and sorrow that had become a part of their everyday lives. They spoke of the joyous moments they would never get back, the laughter that had been silenced, and the futures that had been shattered. The courtroom was filled with emotion as Melissa listened intently, her face betraying nothing. She had shown no remorse throughout the trial, but now she heard the devastating consequences of her actions. The judge, taking into consideration the heinous nature of the crime and the impact on the family, handed down a severe sentence. Melissa was convicted of capital murder and was given the death penalty. As the sentence was read, a wave of emotions washed over Jennifer's family. There were tears of relief, anger, and a sense of finality. Finally, justice had been served. Melissa's journey through the criminal justice system was far from over. She appealed her conviction, but her efforts to overturn the guilty verdict were unsuccessful. The higher courts upheld the decision, and Melissa was left with no option but to accept her fate. As the years passed, Melissa's case garnered significant public attention, with many questioning the severity of the punishment. However, considering the brutality of the crime and the premeditation involved, the death penalty was seen as an appropriate punishment for such a heinous act. Currently, Melissa is incarcerated on death row at the Mountain Home Unit in Arkansas. Her time in prison has been marked by controversy and legal battles. She has attempted to delay her execution through various means, including filing numerous appeals and lawsuits. However, her efforts have been unsuccessful. In recent years, there have been discussions about abolishing the death penalty. Some argue that it is inhumane and does not serve as a deterrent. However, supporters of capital punishment argue that it is necessary for the most heinous crimes and provides closure for the families of victims. As Melissa awaits her fate, she remains defiant. She has given interviews claiming innocence and maintaining that she did not commit the crime for which she was convicted. However, her claims have been widely disregarded, and many believe that she is merely trying to avoid her punishment. Over the years, the public has debated whether Melissa truly committed the murder. Some believe that she was wrongly convicted and sentenced to death. However, the evidence against her was substantial, including DNA evidence, witness testimony, and a confession from her own handwriting. Therefore, most people believe that she deserves her punishment and that justice was served. As Melissa's execution date approaches, she may find herself reflecting on the choices that led her to this point. The horrific details surrounding Jennifer's murder continue to haunt the community, and many still question how such a brutal crime could have occurred. As we conclude this video, it's important to remember that behind every case there is a story, and behind every story lies a truth. This was Case Vault, where every case tells a story and every story hides a truth. Thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe for more updates.